Hello everyone, I'm Zach and I like movies, and I am back again for another entry in my Letterboxd Criterion Challenge for 2024. And today's prompt is number 35, which was to watch a movie from Tunde Adebimpe's top 10 list. Hope I pronounced that name right. And the one I chose from that list was a great one. It is a marvelous movie. It comes to us from 1990, a late period masterpiece from one of the old masters of cinema. And it is Dreams by Akira Kurosawa. Well, and yeah, this was quite the marvelous little movie. I guess it's a little movie, especially when you compare it to the major, like, massive, loud epics that Kurosawa had made at the time. Like the movie he made before this, Ron, which is, oh my god! If you haven't seen Ron, you are not living life to the fullest. It is truly one of the greatest movies ever made, like either from Japan, from Kurosawa, ever made, ever. Easy 10 on 10. But he really took to making Ron as his swan song, and the movie, this big movie about ambition and war and extremes and an old man sort of grappling with what will remain of his legacy. And he returned 5 years later for a much more gentle and much quieter film. And even sort of like getting this made was kind of a hassle, because despite being a renowned master for decades, worldwide acclaim, even won the Palme d'Or in 1980 for Kagemusha, another great movie. And at the time, Kurosawa was having trouble getting funding for these as kind of a repetitive, kind of a tale we still know today. Like even Toho, which was Kurosawa's regular, long-time trusted studio, they rejected the script for Dreams. He was being seen as too risky, and it didn't take much of a profit. That sort of sentiment of the art of filmmaking and film business sort of clashing, and film business kind of winning a couple battles in the end. The sentiment that we are sadly shared today for our current old masters. At the time of recording, Clint Eastwood's Juror Number 2, potentially his last film, has received a largely, some would call pitiful distribution for the United States. I mean, sure, yeah, it'll be on streaming soon, but you're gonna is Warner Brothers really gonna do that to Clint Eastwood after 50 years of just being an absolute steward of the studio? But yeah, what could be expected? Big thanks, David Zaslav, enemy of art and joy. But so, like with his later projects, like with Ran and with Kagemusha, he got help from the West. He got help from big fans. He has some big fans over in the West, with names like not just Martin Scorsese, but Steven Spielberg and George Lucas too. And Stevie Speaks was a great fan of Kurosawa, and he managed to broker a deal with Warner Brothers because Steven is just he's able to do that. He's just that good, just that kind of guy. And he got a distribution deal with Warner Brothers, and George Lucas, who he himself is also a huge fan of the old masters of Kurosawa Sensei. Given all his massive influence on the Star Wars franchise, as he pitched in to bring Industrial Light and Magic in to help with some of the effects, all at a cost, and it was a marvelous help. But this movie is very interesting for all of Kurosawa's work, because this is much more abstract. This is much more there is a narrative here, but it's a lot thinner. It's just a movie about these 8 marvelously colored, gorgeously staged, and emotionally and just beautifully evocative and dynamic vignettes that are about just dreams he's had. But he sort of does give a thin narrative tied to it, because it follows a Kurosawa stand-in. You know, he's credited, quite literally credited as I, as in I, as in I, Kurosawa. And so it begins. He had the following dream. First one's called Sunshine Through Rain, and it's a young I, where he defies his mother's order and he walks out in the forest during a rainstorm. And in the forest, he sees a troop of strangers, emerging from the fog. And they're all dressed in these like ceremonial, Japanese robes. They're, and it's a wedding procession. But with these human beings, they're like dressed in like elaborate fox makeup and fake whiskers, and they're all marching in this synchronized, choreographed fashion. And every so often they would like turn their heads to the right, as if like as if like this marching dance. It's it calls to mind No Theater, which was this very bold and dynamic form of acting, form of performance that I always felt like was an influence on Kurosawa's general directing style. The way that he would like block his actors, it always felt very bold and dynamic and very and theatrical in a way that like some of the how some like golden age of Hollywood movies would had their roots in theatrical acting. But then he returns home to his mother, but he's shunted away to like kind of effectively on a coming of age journey, where he walks out into this titular rainbow. Marvelous. Like, my God, like I gotta say, I should tell you right away, this is honestly one of the most beautiful looking movies ever. Probably debatably some of the best use of color ever. And I say debatably because, my God, like, it's fascinating how Kurosawa was so late to film in color. Like his last 7 films over his that he only made over like 23 years. They were the only ones of his films that were of his like 30 something films that were made in color. But every time, and I'm always fascinated by that, because like so many directors at that time, like I think they had already made the jump to color. I think of like Hitchcock, when Kurosawa was making his hits in like the 50s, like High and Low and Ikiru, he had by then already started like moving into color film with like To Catch a Thief, and even his heights with like in the later 50s like Vertigo and North by Northwest. But Kurosawa, he was pretty steadfast in black and white for so long, but when he finally did do his color films, which really reached some like sumptuous heights in like not only Kagemusha, but also Ron. Like, oh my God, like the use of these bold, brilliant colors is just marvelous to see. And Dreams, probably is a little closer to Kagemusha in how very ethereal and very again dreamlike that they're used with. And so speaking of dreams, he had another dream, a dream called the Peach Orchard, where he follows a girl in a pink kimono out into this field, where he comes across these people in this like big wide field that they're all like dressed to the nines. They're they look like Hinna-dolls, like made in real life, and they all kind of like mock, they kind of like put him down and laugh at him because these people, they represent the peach trees. This is a peach orchard, and they sort of laugh at him because he only wanted these the peach trees to get free peaches, but he sort of cries and throws back, I could buy peaches from the store. Where can you buy an orchard in full bloom? They're sort of taken aback. Oh, we were wrong. He's a good boy. And so they give him a dance. They dance and show the peach orchard in full bloom. And my God, peach blossom trees in full bloom is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. but when he like when he follows that same girl, he like walks kind of sideways up this little stair, this little set of stairs. And he reaches up to her. She turns into a small, full bloom tree. The camera pulls back, and the trees are gone, and it's just this little one. And that's sort of a feeling that sort of stays with this. That sort of stays with dreams. That yes, there is that all of this beauty is in this world. It's very like, again, dreamlike, but there's also this. There's also feelings of loss and feelings of death and time passing by, and this threat of death, which comes into the next one, the Blizzard, which is watching I as part of this troop of mountaineers, which Kurosawa also was. He was like an avid mountain climber. They were marching up this mountain, this snow-covered mountain, in this agonizing slow motion, and you're watching them, and like there's this synchronicity with like a rhythm is found with like their breathing and their stomping with like this like morose music, and he's trying to bring everybody up, and like he doesn't want anybody fall asleep and freeze to death, and he starts to fade, and he literally starts hearing a voice. The ice is warm, the ice is hot, by a woman, a Yuki Ono, an ice woman. He literally fights her off from falling asleep and freezing to death. And the howling winds and the blizzard, it finally breaks, and it's peace. You see the blue skies. They see the peak of the mountain, and they see their camp. And there's this victorious cheer out of them, and they march forward, and it's and it's kind of this big, all right, you almost had me there. You almost lost it. But honestly, there was that threat of death continues, and that knowledge of death, the acknowledgement of death as well. That also continues in the next one, the tunnel, which is probably one of the more sobering of these vignettes, where he walks through. He's in soldier fatigue, and he comes across this tunnel. This dog walks out, kind of growls and barks at him, and then walks back in and backs into the darkness of the tunnel. And he walks through, just slowly, hearing every bitter echo from each step of his army boots. And he walks out, and then what follows out of him, with him, is a man, Negochi. Negochi is dead. He is dressed in his own armor fatigues. He's painted in this neon, this bluish green, sort of painting. It's very theatrical. You paint him like this. We know from immediately that he's dead, and I kind of breaks it to him that you're dead. You're dead, and it breaks Negochi's heart, and he turns around into the tunnel, walks back to the tunnel, and when he comes back with a full platoon, all of them are dead. And I, who was the commander of this platoon, he weeps and apologizes for having survived. And this part is interesting in an autobiographical sense, because Kurosawa never served in the Japanese Imperial Army. He was deemed unfit to serve after a physical. However, a close friend of his and director of the OG Godzilla, Ishirô Honda, he served. He served many years in the army, and it becomes this. It's this tale not just of acknowledging death, but sort of grappling with survivor's guilt. I'm sorry I couldn't have been there for you when you needed it. It's that tough emotion that you would have felt maybe I would have been better dying along with you, because then I wouldn't be here feeling these things, feeling these awful feelings, especially feelings. And that vignette sort of closes out with that same dog coming back, when he's angrily barking and snarling at him under this like viciously red light, this overcast light, and it's just sort of like accentuating this compacting like anger and self-hatred and feelings of self-hatred, but then after this like grim, after a grim vignette like that, we get crows. And this is absolutely the every frame of painting scene vignette. It's because it is quite literally that. So we see I in a museum and he's looking at Van Gogh paintings, and then he steps into the Van Gogh paintings, and by that I mean he looks at a painting, camera zooms in on the painting, and then we're in like a set where like the colors are exactly like a Van Gogh, and he walks through, he travels around, follows the fields, follows these like rundown houses that are like have these, again, painted with these bold, expressive colors, and he meets Vincent van Gogh himself. Like he's out in this golden field of wheat, and he's painting. And Van Gogh is played none other by the god himself, Martin Scorsese. And it was fascinating because like Scorsese, he always, when he thought of playing Van Gogh, he always thought of like Kirk Douglas in Lust for Life, but like it felt, I'm sure it must have felt like an honor to him to even be asked to perform for Akira Kurosawa, and he's a young man by now. He like walks up and he's very, he takes off his hat. He's very respectful. He's like sort of standing on him, and Van Gogh just kind of asks him, "Why aren't you painting? A scene that looks like a painting does not make a painting. If you take the time and look closely, all of nature has its own painting." And he talks to him about this constant drive to paint, to create art, to sort of make sense, to like make the art of what he sees out of the world. And he tries again. He says it drives him like a locomotive. And man, and then it breaks into this marvelous sequence of Van Gogh painting, and the sun is beaming down on them, and we're following I as he's like walking around Vincent van Gogh paintings. It's not just in this beautiful sets of nature, but also like in quite literally paintings. The effect is a little Reading Rainbow, but emotionally speaking, it's breathtaking. It's just this, it's play, and the music is the Raindrop Prelude by Chopin. It's just kind of this wonderful alchemy of sight and sound that cinema that it's just like, I can only get this watching a movie. Nothing else works. And we sort of leave off Van Gogh with him muttering, "There's so much time left. There's so little time left, and there's so much more for me to paint," which absolutely is what Kurosawa was feeling at the time. And that line really hit harder for me, because now that's feelings that Scorsese himself has been feeling. Like, not like, if you've been following him in like all of last year when he was like was doing promo and discussions about Killers of the Flower Moon, he felt like there was so little time left for him, and he doesn't know but he has so much more to give. And if you ever seen The Irishman, you know that those feelings are weighing really heavy on his head. And following this beauty, we get Mount Fuji in red, which is where the beauty of nature takes its vengeance. It's nuclear reactors are exploding one after the other, and like Mount Fuji is like, again, bathed in this like harsh, nasty red colors. And all these other civilians, they're like just in complete and total fear, and like the wind, like where wind is now poisoned in these different colors of like radio, like the wind itself is being poisoned with radiation, and it's despairing, and it's shocking, and that again leads into the Weeping Demon vignette, where Ai is now effectively in a post-apocalypse. He's just sort of like wander, and he's left to wander this barren, destroyed wasteland, where he sees people just sort of like lingering around with these red pools, just sort of like flailing around, like again, like wailing, crying demons, and but that's not where it ends off. The movie actually ends on a much more optimistic note, or the very least, a much more calm and serene note. And it is the segment, The Village of the Watermills, where he finds himself in a remote river village, and the tone of this whole section of the movie is just you could just curl up and fall asleep peacefully, and it's like perfectly and there but again, there's like still this there's still this undercurrent of death there. Like he passes by this big rock that children light flowers on as sort of a commemoration of this ill woman that passed through the village, and they sort of give their graces to. And he speaks with this old man. This old man. He has this. Actually, he's this old man. Yeah, look at that. Again, this is the kind of color work we're working with in this film. And he talks, and who, by the way, he's played. This old man is played by Chishû, who was a regular for one of Kurosawa's peers, Yasujiro Ozu. And this old man is apparently 103, and he tells them about how this village abandoned the conveniences of the modern world. When he says, scientists, many of them are smart, but many are completely deaf to the beating of nature's heart. And it's sort of this, again, sort of like this, sort of like after this violent reclamation of nature, we sort of like get now the serenity of a balance being made, and as with that acknowledgement of death, and sort of also feelings of the joy of a life. There is we see a funeral train, for this like 99-year-old woman that it just passed, and it has a very carnival celebration to it. They're playing instruments, they're all they're chanting. It's a real expression. It feels it's kind of like a New Orleans funeral. It's the joys of it's not a cry because it's not a cry because you're gone. It's celebrating because you've lived. And the old man joins in, and while I himself doesn't join, and he leaves the village, he does take a flower, and he leaves it on the rock, and that's the note the movie goes out on. This sort of and I think what's also interesting is that this is the segment that's the least artificial. It's not, there's no grand effects. There's no this isn't so much of a set piece. It feels like we're just in a village, almost as if we finally left the dreams and we're back in reality, and we're back in the real, and we sort of take what we felt, take the emotions that we remember from these dreams, these sort of lessons that we want to impart in ourselves, and we carry on. And that, I think, is it. That's dreams, and what beautiful dreams they are. They're such, it's a marvelous film, so beautiful, so sumptuous. Again, I kind of just want to take some of these vignettes to bed with me. They're so beautiful. Be it crows, be it the watermill village, or even something as sad, as sad as the tunnel, I think is so powerful, so evocative in the emotions it brings out of me. And yeah, absolutely check this out if you haven't seen it. And really, you should see anything and everything that Kurosawa made. He really was one of the greatest to ever do it, and there's still so many things that I can learn from him. And I'm so glad that I got to watch this, and I hope you watch it too. So for now, that will be it. I will be back again soon for another another entry in my Letterboxd challenge. A much shorter movie, a much smaller movie than this. And yeah, cannot recommend Dreams enough. And it's marvelous picture. And that'll be all. My name is Zach. I like movies. I have a lot more movies to watch, and I hope you'll watch movies too. And I will see you all later. You take care of yourselves.